Okay, so we are going to be making bread today. Normally, I would do this in my KitchenAid mixer and then knead it, but I have a lot of things that I need to get done today, so I'm just going to do the dough cycle in my bread machine, and then I will shape it after it rises and everything and bake it. So, for this recipe, it's a super simple recipe. We're going to start out with a cup of warm water that's about 110 degrees. To that, we are going to add a third of a cup of sugar. We're going to add 3/4 of a tablespoon of yeast. Actually, I want to do the yeast on top, so I'm not going to add the yeast yet. I'm going to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And actually, stop that. I'm going to do my flour. So I need, well, let me do the oil first. Okay, sorry guys. All right, so I need about 1/8 of a cup of oil, and I'm going to use avocado oil because there's no taste in it. It's a pretty neutral oil. Okay, and then I'm going to use, let me get my measuring cup. I'm going to use 3/4 of a cup of bread flour. I'm sorry, 3/4 of a cup. 3 cups of bread flour. I'm really struggling today. I'm sorry, guys. So 3 cups of bread flour. And I'm not scooping with the measuring cup that I'm going to measure in because I don't want to pack my flour down. There's 2. 1 more. And there's 3. Put that aside. Okay, now I'm going to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to add 3/4 of a tablespoon of yeast. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a well in the middle of my flour here. And that's where I'm going to put the yeast. Okay. So, see my yeast in there? Okay. So, this is going to make about a 1.5 pound loaf. I'm going to go ahead and set it on my dough cycle and let that go. And I will be back when it's time to shape it and get it into our pans to bake. In the meantime, while that is going, I'm going to clean this up and then get started on our next project. Because like I said, I have a lot of things going on today. Okay, so we are back with our dough. Look how beautiful that is. Okay, let me move my bread maker. Okay, and okay. Okay, so I'm going to oil my pan with some avocado spray. And then my dough goes in here. I'm going to cover this up and I'm going to put it in my oven on the bread proofing setting. If you don't have a bread proofing setting on your oven, you can turn your oven on. What I used to do on my gas stove is I would turn the oven on, and when I heard the pilot light go on or the gas go on, then I would turn the oven off and put my bread in there. You can also put it, if your kitchen is warm, you can put it on top of your refrigerator. Just find a warm space to put it. It's gonna, we're gonna proof it until it is doubled in size, until it reaches the top of our pan, okay? And then we're gonna bake it at 375 for about 25 minutes. I think it's 25 minutes. I will check on that when I come back, but for now, we're gonna put it someplace warm to rise. Okay, our bread has risen, and our oven has preheated to 350 degrees. We're gonna bake this now for 30 minutes at 350 degrees. And then we will have fresh bread for the week. As part of the pantry challenge, I did not buy bread. I did not stock up on anything before this pantry challenge, because I think that's the whole point of a pantry challenge, is try and live on the things that you already have, not stock up. Okay, here's our beautiful loaf of bread. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? All right, let me put this on a rack to cool off. Okay. And I'm going to also put a little bit of butter on that, just to keep the crust a little bit softer. So I usually try and make my bread at the beginning of the week, so that way I have bread the whole week. And I find that I have a hard time buying bread at the store anymore, just because I know that I can make it. It won't take long to make it, especially like today. I didn't really have time to knead it and everything, so I let my bread machine knead it, and then I shaped it and baked it. So stay tuned for the rest of the video. I'm going to be making some chicken and biscuits for dinner, and I will bring you guys along with that as well. Okay, so for dinner, I'm going to be making chicken and biscuits. So the first thing I want to do is make my biscuits. And for that, I'm going to have 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And I have a video where I've made biscuits before, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this. And to that, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder. All right, so this is a 1/2 teaspoon measure. 1/2, 1, 1.5, 2. And I'm going to add, I cannot see, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. And a teaspoon of salt. There's 1/2, 1. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get all this mixed up. And to this, I'm going to add seven tablespoons of butter. And you want your butter to be chilled. So in order to get the really flaky biscuits and the flaky layers, you want your biscuits, your butter to be as cold as possible. So I'm not going to use my hands a lot for this. I'm going to do it with my pastry cutter. You can use your hands. I just think it's easier to use a pastry cutter. And I may, if this gets too hard, I may change to my hands. So you want it to resemble like coarse, almost like oatmeal. You want it to be like pea size. And this butter I literally just took out of the freezer, so it is extremely cold. So I think it's just easy to make biscuits because I pretty much always have everything for biscuits in my pantry. The flour. I don't normally keep buttermilk. However, I do keep buttermilk powder, which is what I use because buttermilk, I never use a whole lot of it. So if I bought buttermilk at the store, most of it would go bad because I only need a little bit for recipes. All right, so let me switch over to my hands here and just kind of flatten these butter chunks out a little bit. Just to get more surface area on them. And when we roll these out, you should be able to see the chunks of butter in the dough when we roll them out. Okay, so to this, I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk, which I have already made up with my buttermilk powder. And again, I'm going to use my hands. And I'm just trying to hydrate all of my flour. I don't want to overmix this. I'm just trying to get all that dry flour that's at the bottom of the bowl mixed into our dough. And you don't want to overmix because you don't want your biscuits to be tough. You want them to be nice and soft and fluffy. And we're going to put some layers in these so they're going to rise as well. Okay. Get the rest of that. And you see I'm just kind of cleaning the side of the bowl just to pick up all of the extra flour that's there. And I'm also going to flour our work surface when I roll them out. Okay, so let me get this cleaned up a little bit and we'll roll these out. I can just move all this back. Let me get a little bit of flour on my work area. And I'm going to move some over to the back here. All right, and let me get my rolling pin. So we're going to roll these out till they're about an inch. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an envelope fold, like you're folding a letter. And I'm going to turn my dough over. So it's a lot like when you do puff pastry. And I try and just straighten up the edges as I go along. And let me bring you in closer so you can still see the chunks of butter like there and there. I'm going to fold it again. That's how we're going to get our layers. And what's going to happen is we have all these layers, and then when we put our biscuits in the oven, the butter's going to melt and it's going to release all that water and turn to steam, and that's going to raise our layers. Now, I am making these a little bit early, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll them out. I'm going to cut them, and then I'm going to put them in the freezer just to keep them until I'm ready to put them on our chicken and biscuits. So it's going to be kind of like a pot pie where we're going to make the gravy in the cast iron, and then we're going to put our biscuits on top to bake. You don't want to twist your biscuit cutter because that will seal your layers, and we want these to rise. Okay, so I'm going to set these aside, and you can see all the layers in there. And then I'm going to push my dough back together. And cut some more out. Let me roll it a little bit more. Okay, so we are back. We're gonna start making our gravy for our chicken and gravy. While I'm heating up my cast iron skillet, I'm going to preheat my oven to 375 degrees. And to my cast iron skillet, I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of butter. Maybe turn this down a little bit. And I'm gonna melt that butter. Once my butter is melted, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add in a 1/4 cup of flour. And I'm gonna cook the flour to get the raw flour taste out of it. And this is going to be the roux for our chicken and gravy, for our chicken and biscuits. So let me get this melted, and as soon as this is melted, we will go on to add our flour. And to that, once that's all done, I'm gonna add some home canned chicken broth. I also have home canned chicken that I canned up last year in my pressure canner, and a cup of mixed vegetables. And I'm actually cutting this recipe in half. So that I don't have a ton of leftovers. Okay, so that's pretty much melted. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add my flour now, and I'm gonna start stirring this. And we're gonna get our flour all cooked down. And I like doing this in my cast iron because I can put my cast iron directly in the oven when I'm done making this on the stovetop. Okay, to this, I'm going to add 2 cups of chicken broth. I'm going to go ahead and let that come to a simmer before I add anything else. I want to break up that flour and butter mixture that's in there. And that's also going to help and thicken our gravy. So we're gonna let this come to a boil or a simmer, and then we'll be back. Okay, so our gravy is kind of starting to boil. So I'm gonna add in 2 tablespoons. You can do heavy cream or milk. I did not, so I don't keep heavy cream because I don't go through it fast enough. But I do keep heavy cream powder, but I did not make any. So I'm just gonna use some whole milk that I keep. And I actually use whole milk powder as well. And that's just gonna lend a creamy consistency to our gravy. It's gonna lighten it up a little bit. And we're gonna let this continue to cook. I also want to add some salt and pepper. You just add it to taste. Okay. And we're gonna let this continue until our gravy starts to thicken. So you can see where there's some little bubbles coming up on the side. That's a good sign. Once it starts to, you can already tell it's already starting to thicken a little bit. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start adding, and I have my chicken here that I canned in my pressure canner. I'm just kind of shredding it in the jar before I add it because I don't want like huge chunks of chicken. But I want, you know, chicken in every bite, of course. And there was a little bit of extra broth in the chicken as well, and I just went ahead and added that as well. And let me go ahead and stir this. Whoop! Almost went over the side there. All right, so we're gonna get our chicken stirred in. All right, let me turn this heat off. So we have our chicken kind of distributed. Now I'm gonna add my mixed vegetables from the freezer. That's okay if they are still frozen. They're going to cook in the oven. So, and there are some chunks, so that's okay. All right. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to cook this in a 375-degree oven. I'm gonna cook it for 20 minutes first, and then I'm gonna add my biscuits to the top of it. And then you're gonna cook it for, so you can use refrigerator biscuits, but because I'm using homemade biscuits, let me see how long my biscuits have to cook for. Oops. All right, so my biscuits have to cook for 15 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put this in a 375-degree oven for 20 minutes. Then I'm gonna put the biscuits on top and I'm gonna cook it until the biscuits are golden brown. So as soon as I'm ready to put the biscuits on top, I'll bring you guys back so you can see it. And my biscuits are in the freezer so that the butter doesn't melt or soften up. Okay, we have our biscuits out of the freezer. We're gonna take our chicken gravy out. I'm gonna go ahead and just stir it up a little bit. Get some of that off the side. Okay. All right, and now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put our biscuits, close the oven door. We're gonna put our biscuits on top and they are going to cook on top. I'm gonna get a little bit of buttermilk and just brush it on top of the biscuits as well. Just to kind of help them get a little bit golden. And these are going to be absolutely delicious. It's going to be a nice, comforting meal. All right, so we're going to put this back in the oven for at least another 20 minutes until our biscuits are nice and golden brown and done. Okay, our chicken and biscuits is done. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Yum. Alright guys, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, I hope that you will consider subscribing to my channel. I hope that you'll give this video a thumbs up in YouTube. And if you want to get notified every time I upload a new video, go ahead and hit that bell notification and you'll get notified every time I upload a new video. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'm going to go ahead and dish some of this up. It's hot. Absolutely delicious. So I hope you guys try this recipe. I think your family will love it. All right, talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye.